All right. Hey guys, welcome to another Note to File Live. I just had to make sure that I wasn't muted. I think I'm good to go here. You guys, if you haven't, check us out, notetofilepodcast.com. We're doing weekly live streams every Tuesday at noon Eastern. Excited about today's guest. I'll go ahead and drag him up right now. Welcome, Wayne Walker from Metadata. Wayne, how's it going, man?
Good, thanks, Brad. I was sort of that bumping music was a good intro. I was sort of dancing away there, and good I wasn't on camera because nobody wants to see me dance.
I try to mix it up a little bit, throw in, I like hip hop. I like a lot of old punk rock and all that stuff. So it's fun to mix it up and
Yeah,
do something a little entertaining. Well, very cool. If you guys haven't seen, excuse me, just a moment. Wayne did a recent audio podcast. It is episode 80 at notetofilepodcast.com. So I don't want to necessarily rehash too much, but before we get deep, if you would, just go ahead and give us a little brief intro. Tell us about yourself. I know you've been in the game here for a long time, clinical trials. So, tell us a bit about your backstory, if you would.
Yeah, sure. Been around a bit. Started my sort of career in clinical trials as probably many of us have, not really planning on getting to the space, just sort of landed in it and fell in love with it, and been in it now for 25 years, I think, around. Started with PRA Health Sciences, clinical programmer, got into sort of systems management. The last 12 years of the 18 I was at PRA, I managed clinical systems, all of the sort of biometric systems at PRA. That involved sort of working with some vendors that provided that technology, working with some on-prem installation of capabilities, things like SaaS Grid, things like that. And then also we had some in-house developed solutions. Landed at Metadata about 6.5 years ago now. Always had Rave EDC in my portfolio. Had at one time or other a number of other capabilities that we have in our tool set. And currently I have, as I said, Rave, Safety Gateway, which is our safety system integration fabric, Coda, which is our medical coding solution, randomization and trial supply management, imaging, and we got a new product in the market that's basically platform configuration and study setup called Designer, and there'll be more coming out on that fairly soon. So yeah, it's great to be here. Love the podcast we did a little bit ago, and looking forward to today's conversation for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm obviously, as somebody who works at the site level, I mean, I still see patients from time to time. So all this stuff is very near and dear to me. Rave's been around a while. I'll say this. I'm always happy to hear when Rave is going to be the EDC that's used on the trials that we, are awarded. At this point, I feel like you guys are kind of you guys are like the pinnacle of EDC as far as I'm concerned. Everybody knows how to use it. It's not, overly complicated from the site side, but obviously we still have, a long ways to go in terms of sites and their data collection and how that integrates or doesn't really for the most part with EDC. So I know we're kind of here to talk about that a little bit today. And I'm going to probably play devil's advocate a little bit with you throughout, the course of this, because I have a sort of mixed feeling and perspective. But, get it out of the way here. We're talking, EHR to EDC. It's no surprise, it shouldn't be at this point, that a lot of what we do at the site level is essentially double data entry. We're collecting data and then we're entering it maybe on a paper CRF, maybe on an eSource, if you're lucky. But nonetheless, you're still having to go put it into an EDC, or again, maybe that's being recorded in the EHR or exists in the EHR. So I guess talk to us a little bit about what you guys have seen from Metadata and how maybe you're helping bridge that gap a little bit.
Yeah, so look, it's something that as a sort of technology domain, we've failed at deploying a scalable solution to prevent at least the double data entry. So I'm going to come at this from two angles. So for the sites that are entering it in some electronic form, they literally are entering it twice. Waste of time, inherently human error comes into it. And we have a load of sort of activities around that to make sure that the data that's collected from the patient is matching the data that's in the ECRF. And we've been trying to conquer this for 12 years and plus, and we just haven't again done it in a scalable solution, mainly because a lot of the activity in the solutions that are in this space are doing a lot of activity up front in mapping of data. And we'll go through a little video here why that just isn't applicable. So our team here at Metadata really came at solving that problem from a different angle. And as I say, we're going to get into that. The other area that you mentioned is you're collecting on paper, or some sites are doing that, and why can't we just enter it right into Rave? Reality is you can. I'm not saying it's the best experience because it's a web browser, so you have a laptop, or if you're doing it on an iPad, you have half the screen eaten up by the keyboard, or if you have an attached keyboard, you still have to take that around with you. I'd love to come on again and show you what we're doing in that space, but we are sort of solving that more through an app, a mobile app that can be deployed on an iPad that really leverages the sort of ECRF configuration, so not having to do duplicate configuration, and give it a more streamlined workflow for the sites to be able to enter that directly into Rave. And then we've got some initiatives to drive workflow with more on the operational side. So that's...
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I will absolutely lose my mind if you guys can work out something to where, we're just entering like a seamless, it's like metadata front-facing e-source, but integrates back into an EDC. Because frankly, the site level, I don't care about your EDC. Like, not that sounds wrong, but like, I don't care what you're doing with the data after it's entered. If we're entering it into like a front-facing, e-source or ECRF, then do whatever you want with it on the back end. But sorry, not to interrupt, but I just you guys will have all of my respect if you can make that a solution.
It's really been we've been asked to do that for a while. If truth be told, a lot from the phase 1 units that are probably in your audience, where they're seeing multiple patients in a cohort or in a population in a very short period of time, and they want to be able to go from patient to patient and collect that data. So again, we can come back on and show you there, because that's in the design phase right now, and we're doing some user testing on that to make sure that we're developing something that the market can consume. On what we're doing today around EHR and tapping into that electronic form again, people think that, well, we're entering it, how come you can't just bring it across into the ECRF? Well, it's more of the matching element, and that's what I mean. It's this mapping stuff that really hasn't taken off because of the time it takes, and the period in which you have to do that, which is, at study startup, which everybody knows is a pretty intense period with a lot of stuff going on. If you add activities in that space, it really does create problems. So we, as I say, we had our team go away and try and figure this out from a different angle. And I'm proud to say that I think that we've got really a good solution to help our sites really get more streamlined data capture mechanism. And we can go into that now if you'd like.
Yeah, I say let's check it out. I will pop up to the stream and actually let me make it a little easier to see there. So yeah, there you go.
Are we live? Cool. And obviously, there's a mechanism, I believe, Brad, keep me honest, for the folks online to ask questions, and we're more than happy to answer those that I can, and certainly any that I can't, I can take away. So here's everybody's seen it. This is when you log into the metadata platform, and I'm going to start and stop this video just to highlight some of the activities that are going on in this video.
Great companion. First, log into my EDC.
I meant to mute that. So here we are. We're going into EDC. We're bringing up a site as people do, and we've got a list of patients here. When you click into that patient, you've got the forms, and then you click into a form, and you'll see here, I've paused the video, here, this box pops up as soon as you enter the eCRF. And there's a couple of things I want to highlight here. First of all, the tool that we're using here is called Companion. It's Rave Companion. The name suggests it's a companion to our sites to help them actually do the data capture activities that they're performing on the clinical trial for the eCRF. And there's two components of Companion. One is Connect and one is Click. And I think you'll see as we go through this why they're called that. Click is basically you're clicking on values from your EHR, EMR, electronic system of any form and putting it into the eCRF. Connect means that we've connected to your data source. So there's a couple of things here. This part of the video is where we've actually connected to the site's EHR, EMR system. And you'll see in the top right, you've got two green dots, green light bulbs, so to speak, which means that we've connected this patient and the EMR is actually linked to this patient, the EMR data. There's a patient registry activity that connects this patient to Rave and your EHR, and that's outside of Rave. So that's in a separate area of our platform, so that whenever you subsequently come into this patient, it's automatically delving into your data source and presenting that data within this window. So this is where we've connected to that data. We're bringing in all of the EMR, EHR data into this window, but you can also, as you see here on the all and date, you can subset this. So if there's a certain date that data was collected, you can filter it to show only that data, and you've got a plus and minus how many days within that date window that you choose there. We're bringing in this example all of the data, and you can see the lab results. It's actually pulling the metadata from the eCRF, the actual fields that are on the eCRF, and populating that window, and then bringing that subsequent connected data within this companion window. Within here, you can see that there's the number 6 connected to these lab values. That means in this patient's EMR, we have 6 albumin values, 6 sodium, 6 potassium, et cetera, et cetera. And this is one of the areas that we've struggled from a technology perspective, is when we're doing that mapping, which a lot of solutions do today, it's like a field to field. Reality is the EMR data is not just a field-to-field mapping. You have multiple values in those fields, and it's like which one is actually applicable to the eCRF that you're entering data for. So that's why one of the reasons that sort of current process has failed, and we are now putting a human in the loop, but sort of eliminating that duplicate data entry here. So we'll continue on in this video where we'll now soon click on the values, and it'll present the values for this patient. Eventually. There you go. Show EMR data. So these are all the values of albumin for this patient. And then the site user can click on that and it auto-populates the values for that specific date that you've collected that first value. Now, as you can see on the left here, it's automatically populated that data into the ECRF.
Nice. So yeah, it's giving you those time points, and then you're able to pick very specifically. Because I mean, again, to your point, we don't know the logistics or details of this study. Sometimes there can be multiple lab draws very close or not. So no, I love that you've got you can sort of build your own window there in a way, it looks like, and have some flexibility in the data that gets pulled over.
Yeah, and the sites that we spoke to, they were welcoming that sort of human in the loop. All they wanted to do was eliminate, them having to type in the data. So they were looking for tools to help them, as opposed to what a lot of the sort of plans have been, is to eliminate them from the data collection world, which again has not been successful for a long time now. So we've got those discrete values, but obviously in an ECRF, there's other data that may not have even though we've got multiple values and multiple time points, are not going to have a specific data value in your electronic system. So this is where we can now take Rave with you actually into your electronic system. So you'll see here there's a bunch of questions on this CCRF around what was taken, whether Lipitor, amlodipine, etc., was actually taken by the patient. So now we've gone into your site's EHR EMR system, and you'll see Rave is brought with you. So what we try to tell people to conceptually understand what Companion is, Connect is taking your electronic EMR, EHR data with you into Rave. Click is taking Rave with you into your electronic system. So you'll see this is still persisted, the data that's on the ECRF that you were in Rave. And this user has looked at this patient's record and seen that lisinopril was taken in the medications area of the electronic system. We'll also see here where there's a question on the ECRF around whether the patient had COVID, and you can look in your electronic system and actually just click on that value. This is the other area that is really cool, and we got really good feedback on that. Is a lot of the ECRF, you're actually asked to collect text that you've already put in your electronic system. So this is the clinical notes area. So you can see that you've already put the clinical notes in your electronic system. You've clicked on a button to capture that data, and it's a drag and drop type of feature function where you have now, instead of typing all of that content into the ECRF, you've just dragged around that content, and it's automatically being brought into this pop-up. There is, again, automatically, you'll see here in a second, populating that Rave ECRF.
Wow, okay, so you're able, and this is where I came in with the anticipation that you'd really be only able to easily map your sort of more structured data, I guess, so to speak. But it sounds like, I mean, it looks like you're able to even pull that unstructured free text.
Yes.
With literally like same as like the Windows snip tool, essentially. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we developed it in a way that we can work with structured data, we can work with unstructured data, and we can work, as you see here, I don't even know what system this is from a electronic health record system perspective. We can work with any electronic system in the click component around this. So,
and does that require? I guess how's that happening? Is that an extension, or is that like a locally running piece of software? Or do you need some sort of backdoor EMR connection or API, or is it something you can just run? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So the actual window here on the right is just a plug-in to your browser,
Okay.
simple install process. We know that there are probably some major hospital units where we'll have to work with your IT system to get this deployed because they're very strict on what can be installed. But we've actually got a model around that because our imaging product has a lot of those core lab installation capabilities, and we've worked with a lot of hospitals to get our sort of plugins, our software installed in those facilities. So we've got a lot of connections there to sort of get that accommodated. So that's the plugin. On the connection to the data sources, there's sort of two modes of connection that we're working with. One is there's a lot of these health information exchanges. There's sort of data aggregators where we can connect into those providers. There's still obviously an oversight and a sort of consent process that we go through with the actual sites, but that's not a technical hurdle. That's administrative, making sure that we've got the permission from the sites to actually tap into that data and bring it into the system. So that's on the connect side. On the click side, it just takes it with you. There's no overhead, there's no mapping. So that's just available off the shelf pretty much today. We've implemented it in at least one major hospital system, as well as we're working with a number of customers in a sort of early adopter program to get this to their sites because they see the value, at least in click, being able to make it easier for sites to get data into the Rave ECRF.
Yeah, click seems like sort of a no-brainer. And let me ask maybe an ignorant question, but I mean, could click work as easily with an eSource product versus an EHR? So if I pull up an eSource, platform, whatever that may be, is there any reason it couldn't work the same way?
Nope. On the click side, it could work with a spreadsheet.
Right.
It's any sort of electronic system that's capturing this or presenting this information. So there's no sort of
no, and that's as I say, that's a game changer to me. And maybe I'll wait till we get a little bit further through because I do have some overarching thoughts, but that's interesting, and it has a lot more broad application than even what I think I initially thought coming in. So I love what I'm seeing here.
For sure. Now, one other area, and again, it sort of goes back to what are the capabilities in our imaging product is when bringing imaging into the clinical trial, we have a capability of scanning that image and actually finding PII and redacting that. Here we've leveraged at least the algorithm to try and find PII in the text, and you'll see this little orange triangle here. And I think when I play the video here, it's gonna, when you hover over it, I think it gives a little prompt. But this signifies that we scanned this text and we believe there's some PII here as a prompt for the user to say, hey, you need to go do something with this. So I'm going to click on play. There you go. It's it may include, because obviously this is sort of scanning text, and there's some sort of area of uncertainty around that. So we prompt the user to say this may include PHI. And then at that point, the user can actually go into this window and change that, remove that. I think the example takes it to patient. And then now that that PHI warning has gone. So now as we've gone back into Rave, you can see all of that information that you've put in this pop-up window is actually within the Rave ECRF. So that's sort of connect. So we've connected to it. It's a little bit of a hybrid. We've connected to the structured data. We're going to go into click here in a second. We've connected to the structured data. Realize that some of the data on that ECRF is not structured, it's unstructured. So the user has taken the window into their EMR to click on that data and get it into the ECRF. This example now is where it's purely click. So we're not connected to this site's EMR or this patient's EMR. We haven't linked it, the patient. So you'll see up here in the top right, the two red stoplights. And show that I must have rewound there a second, that this patient is not connected. So now we can still, again, go into our EMR, EHR system and look at that data and bring that data in. So in this example, it's looking at a lab report in your EMR, EHR system. And you can do one of two things. You can actually just type into this little pop-up on the right, looking at the values in the lab report, or what you'll see in this example, you see the little sort of dotted window on there, which is signified click and capture. You click on that value in the lab report, and it's automatically populating that window, which subsequently, as we saw earlier, is populating the ECRF.
Wow. So yeah, you're not having to alt tab or pull up a bunch of extra, have two monitors. Again, you're not having to leave your sort of environment there to pull that data over. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I like it. I see it. I see what you're doing. I like this.
It's a number of options, Brad. That's what it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty. I mean, and that's where, I'll have some questions later. I mean, they're already addressed basically, but no, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. So we're trying to put tools in the site's hands to make their lives easier. So I think that's the end of the video. So we can probably go off and sharing and
add this back. No, I mean, so first of all, there are already some questions populating over. So guys, keep asking your questions. We definitely will get to all the questions that we can as we, continue on through. So, in the past, I've seen or heard about, EHR to EDC. It's always felt like a limited use to some degree. And again, this probably varies depending on what your site setup is. We work with a lot of different physicians across different EMRs, but we don't record a lot of source data in the EMR. I mean, research visits are done outside of EMR. I understand, oncology may be something that is quite a bit different, or just pulling historical data for screening visits and things like that, with an occasional local lab here and there. So I've always felt like, yeah, it's cool, but it maybe doesn't really move the needle enough to be that worthwhile. But what we're looking at here is really beyond just that. I mean, obviously Connect is Connect, but to me, the click is extremely compelling because it doesn't seem like it cares what the data source is.
right.
We're getting to a point now where, there's different e-source companies. Maybe you're getting labs faxed to you from who knows where. But you can much more easily ingest that data without, printing, filing, writing it down in ECRF writing it down in a CRF, then entering it into an EDC system. So I feel like that's an insane improvement over what we've seen.
And the trepidation around and the hesitancy around getting into this space and investing the money and the time up front of that is you're doing that and you really don't know whether you're going to actually get any benefit from it, right? So that's why we wanted a sort of a low entry point into leveraging, an already existing data source. And again, whether that be Connect, which we'll get into sort of the structure here in a second, which does require at least a connection, but at least doesn't require the mapping up front. So you connect and you use what you can. And with Click, as you mentioned, it's just that goes with you anywhere. So we wanted to make sure that the entry was low there. Just so more of the tech heads on the call, we are tapping into the FHIR standard here when we present that data. but the field names can be vary across all of our customers. So we actually have a underlying sort of synonym ontology type connection that no matter what there's only a certain variety of field names that someone will give a potassium lab value, for example. And we've seen them all, but we have almost like an ontology, as I say, a synonym list that say, hey, if any of these, then that means potassium. So that's the underlying mechanism there. But the FHIR standard is just one standard. We'll be able to extend to other standards as they become more prevalent, as well as even certainly certain organizations may have their own format of data. We've got a fabric that can actually do that sort of formatting on a once per facility as opposed to once per study, which has been the hurdle that people have not been able to overcome.
So is this something that gets, I guess, set up or offered at a study level or a site level, so to speak? So do I need to have in order to use it, do I need a study that has it where the sponsor purchased or is deciding to utilize it, or is it something that's sort of separate from that?
Yeah, good. That's a great question. The click, our plan is to give that to all of our sites. And again, we're working with some early adopter customers to make sure that before we go into the, 700,000 users of site users that we have on our platform, it's ready for prime time. The Connect, that's coming out later this year, but that is an engagement with a customer of ours, because there's an overhead of actually, if in the health information exchanges, they charge us for that. So we've got to make sure that we're sort of managing that cost a little bit. So there'll be a charge there. And so that may be on a study by study basis, the Connect. But the Click, if you have it, you can take it anywhere.
I mean, that's genius. Have you guys seen, or do you anticipate? I just know in my experience, is there hesitancy from institutions to sort of allow that sort of access, or does it seem like it's pretty simple? I know I've talked to some IT or MIS departments who are basically like, no, anything outside, no, we're not doing it. Do you see that as a challenge, or is that becoming a little bit more, people are more open to that now?
They're more open, but it's still a challenge. And these health information exchanges, that's to sort of promote the interoperability and the sort of the options that patients have in moving outside of the clinical trial world, actually moving from sort of provider to provider and having that data passed back and forth. So somewhat those institutions have already, with obviously it's regulated, provided that HIE, we call them health information exchanges, that data, and now we work with that site to get that approval as well. And the HIE governs that somewhat. But there's still we know that there's going to be hesitancy. That's why I think that, again, we haven't been able to do this at a scalable level. And if there's hesitancy, they've got Click in their tool set to just go and make that.
Yeah, I mean, that right there kind of makes, I don't want to say it doesn't make Connect relevant to me, though. I mean, I want Click, man. Click me up. I'm ready to go. I can hit a lot of different sources and, keep it, again, sort of agnostic to whatever system I'm in. Obviously, I think there's probably a lot of value for Connect for different setups than mine, most likely. But again, I love that. So,
and we realize that, Brad, that there's a lot of focus is on these sort of big hospital systems that do multiple trials. Great. They've probably spent the money to do an Epic or a Cerner or something like that.
Right.
We know that's not a majority of our sites. Whereas some of those systems that outside of the sort of massive providers there may have a FHIR connection, they may have their own format that we can connect to. But again, if they don't, fine, go use Click.
Okay, well, let's hit some questions
Yeah,
over here
yeah.
if you're good with it.
Sort of looking at some of these, I can work my way down if you like, Brad, or if there's some things that you want to call out, please do so. But there's a question here, obviously, for the folks that are on. We have Rave EDC, which is our platform-based EDC tool, and then we have Classic Rave. Where this works with both. It's basically just reading the ECRF from Rave, and the information that's presented in Companion doesn't matter whether it's Rave EDC or Classic Rave.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Cherie. That makes sense to me. And I know, I mean, you already kind of touched a little bit on how the system identifies and kind of helps keep, PHI or PII out of where it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
Aside from that, we all know, like, none of this is happening until we've already consented a patient and gone through HIPAA authorization. So I imagine that's going to be covered through HIPAA authorization in the consent process, that they're willing and open to sharing those records or otherwise signing additional medical record release forms.
Exactly. And the other element there is we're actually used to managing PII, PHI in our platform. We've got a number of patient-facing technologies in our patient cloud portfolio. And there's actually sort of regulations and best practices around how you segregate those different data sources, because obviously all the data in the ECRF is anonymized. We don't know who the patient is, but obviously on the patient-facing technology, we have to have some connection points to the patient. So we're familiar with those regulations, that best practices, and that's how we manage that.
I like it. And sort of seems like a little tack on here. Are there limits or user rights or privileges that are limited in some way as far as privacy is concerned, ensuring integrity and confidentiality of data? Yeah. So I guess, again, just to go back to the sort of privacy, confidentiality, is there any sort of privileging or provisioning that limits what people can do or not do?
Not within the Companion tool, and that's the other sort of problem that we've had in the historical way we've done it, is because you have an integration user, and then how do you actually capture who brought that data over? Within the examples that we just showed, whether it be Click or Connect, it's still the Rave user that's connected to Rave, and when you save that data, it's going to be under your user. Now we'll capture that it was captured through Connect or Click, under the hood, so to speak, because we're really looking for our customers then to have the option to maybe lessen the review activity if it's coming through one of those sources. Not everybody, it's not going to be one size fits all for those customers, because we have different risk appetites across our customer set, as you can imagine. But we're going to give them the option through configuration of, if this comes in through Connect, then I don't want to review that data. I don't want to source doc verify that data. I want to just let it go because it's come through Connect or Click or whatever it would be.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I didn't consider the sort of downstream impact. So, is that going to save me as a site on data monitoring or source data verification? I mean, that may be unclear and probably outside your guys' scope to some degree, but is the monitor still going to come on and be like, okay, yeah, you pulled it over, but we still need to check that you clicked the right box or the right thing got connected? I mean, do you see that evolving in some ways? Again, my cynicism says a monitor is still going to come on site and be like, okay, show me though where it came from, which is fine. Maybe we still have to produce that, however it may be on paper or access to EMR or whatever the case is. But potentially, I mean, that could lessen to some degree, right?
That's what we want. Our customers are spending millions of dollars in the sort of data review and placing monitors out into the field. It's not going to eliminate them. So I don't think any customer is going to say, hey, that's fine, I don't need to do this anymore. But again, the risk profile, the risk appetite across customers is going to vary a lot, but at least we can provide the configuration that if you do want some downstream behavior based on the data being captured through this tool set, you can configure it so. And hopefully that'll mean that there'll be less queries coming across to the site, there'll be less monitoring visits, etc. But that remains to be seen. We can provide the tools, and then it's up to the customer to decide what their behavior is going to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, ultimately, just because you have you could click on anything. You could be clicking in the wrong boxes still. So there's still some level of human error that can take place, but ultimately you're saving a ton of time, and even still, presumably, you're gaining quite a bit of accuracy versus having to punch in 40 lab values in a row and run through all your patients. So
sometimes we look for solutions that are perfect as opposed to solutions that are better than what we have.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, when people, the site users are transcribing from one system to another manually, mistakes we know are made. Not as many as you'd think, but there are mistakes made. At least we're putting a tool set in our hands that can lessen those mistakes, we believe.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm curious about this myself. Is there FDA guidance on EHR to EDC? I feel like there is. Maybe I'm mistaken.
I think there was some guidance on EHR EMR data in clinical trials released maybe earlier this year or last year. We're in the middle of the regulations coming out from Europe right now, so that's sort of front and center for me. But I think there were some EHR EMR in clinical trial regulations released.
Nadia, stay tuned. I'll look and see if I can find it and post it on here. I both feel like it's right here, maybe. So maybe I can post it up in the comments.
Yeah. Perfect. Damien's got a question there around mapping FHIR to CDISC. Damien, we don't. What we do is we present we read the FHIR format and present that data. And then you may remember I mentioned a synonym list, an ontology that we leverage to say, okay, wherever you're naming that field, we believe this maps to, and this isn't at a study level, this is at a more aggregated level. We know that that's potassium, I think the example I gave, and that brings in the potassium value into the potassium field into the companion window. So there's none of that mapping that's needed, and that's the hurdle that we haven't been able to overcome in the historic way that we've tried to solve this problem.
And Nadia, if you're still watching, I believe that is your link to, that is use of electronic health record data in clinical investigations, guidance for industry from the FDA. So I know there's some, as I was kind of trying to scroll through, there's some addresses it in there. So check that out. I don't know if it's
when was that released?
Let's see. This was July 2018, actually.
Did I say like last year?
There may be a newer one. That was just the first thing I could do on a quick Google search as I'm trying to kind of keep the stream going too. So check it out. If not, there may be some updated, but let's take a look. One more question here. VMR grants access to EDC and vice versa. Can one access EDC through EMR by reverse engineering? I'm not sure that I've...
Yeah, I guess this is... there are, in some EMR systems, you can actually put a configuration where you can launch the EDC system within EMR. I think Cerner, I'm based in Kansas City, so Cerner are local here, and I think I spoke to some folks there that they have that that option. There's some problems with that, but I know that you can do that on some EMR. This is not to replace that. If that's what people want to do, then that's fine. It's just a link within EMR to launch EDC, but this is to supplement that because that is very much installation-based option within those systems.
Yeah, a lot of obviously the heavy tech stuff is kind of over my head, but I find it very interesting. So we're kind of winding down here. If you guys have any more questions, over the next 5-10 minutes, please get them in. So okay, this looks amazing. Honestly, I'm especially interested in this. In many ways, there have been things that have, I think, stymied even like us as a site from like investing or doing like eSource, for example, because it's sort of like, well, it's still basically paper because we still have to go in, re-enter the data, retranscribe it again. Still, it doesn't really save us that much time and energy. This seems like that could be a game changer potentially. Well, I mean, what else? What else is on the horizon here? With sounds like you guys have a lot of other stuff in the works.
Yeah,
this alone is already sort of a big game changer as far as I'm concerned.
So there's a couple of areas that you'll see your experience as a site improving. Before we get to that, I saw there's another entry here from Dr. Fox around, times when sites aren't paid and EDC entry is the only ASAP obsolete. This doesn't remove the EDC entry. You should still be paid for that. This is just a tool that helps you. It's not like there's your coordinators are not actually performing the entry. This is just a tool to enable them to do that better. So
this looks like it still requires a human touch to some degree. It's not just pulling data out of disparate places. So you still got to go make it happen. I like the question, Dr. Fox. I mean, sometimes that's the only leverage we have is like, yeah, well, you know what? Maybe I can't log in right now and enter data because you haven't paid us in 6 months. So it sounds like it's not gonna bypass that.
No. And some of the solutions out there have tried to do that. And again, we've been trying that for 12 plus years and it's failed. So you still have to log into Rave and bring the data in. So pivoting to a couple of other areas. So as I mentioned, Brad, you'll see the design phase that we're going through right now and that Rave app coming out later this year. That's the goal. That's going to enable sort of bedside entry directly into Rave through an app experience, which basically we're going to sort of eliminate some of the edits that you may experience through an EDC, an ECRF and a browser, and run those more post entry. But that you're going to see that, and there's some of those use cases also around. I'm sure your sites have heard the term decentralized trials, which is basically just getting closer to the patient, where we'll have an experience for a home health nurse at the patient's home collecting that data as well within that app. That's a launching point then to other activities, whether it be site-based activities or more operational for clinical operations or data management, but certainly for the other site based activities, things like maybe an app experience around query management or your PIs having to sign data and being able to do that as we become more mobile. That's our vehicle for adding that mobility to our user base. So that's one thing. Or the second thing in addition to Companion. The other areas that you'll see an evolution in the experience, certainly some users have opted in early around when you log into iMetadata, you're going to get a more targeted list of what you've looked at previously, mainly to get you quicker to action. So you'll see an evolution there. That's the entry point of giving you, the last so many studies you've accessed. If you have multiple sites and then patients. So again, just getting you quicker to action. I also just reviewed with our design team last week or the week before, workflows specifically targeted at sites to make it easier for you to both do data entry, but also the query management exercise that you have to go through when data managers and clinical operations. I'm really excited about that. We made some vast improvements with task management in Rave EDC. This takes it to another level. And again, love to come on and see and speak to you how we evolve that over time. Right now, they're working on sort of implementable chunks of that because it's pretty extensive. We don't want to one, wait until all that's developed before rolling it out. But two, if we just change everything about your experience, you're going to log in to do a pretty critical activity and say, what the hell is this? So
right.
we'll slowly feed our users that updated experience over the next sort of 6 to 12 to 18 to 24 months. You'll see a lot of improvements there as well.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I love to, keep you coming back on and showing us new stuff as it becomes available. As I said before, I feel like Rave is great with like the block and tackle, being an EMR. I love it. There's definitely, I'm interested to see how some workflow things can be, better established possibly. Like, again, even the query, I've complained, like, queries can sit. I'd have no idea. I mean, I've got 16, 25, 30 studies in Rave. I'm not looking at them every day.
Right.
I may not even be logging into Rave every day, depending on, what else I'm doing. So sometimes it won't be until a CRA messages me and says, oh, hey, this query's 65 days over. I'm like, what? When? What? Where? When was that? Why didn't anybody tell me? Why didn't I get a notification? Like small things like that.
I forgot to mention that as well, Brad, is it's out there now for some users. It's called a notification center, where we're using that as a vehicle. All of us know how insecure email really is. So we're trying to transition our customers from sending sort of sensitive information maybe through email to more a notification center on platform that then you can get notified that you've got a notification on platform.
Yeah.
You log in.
You got something. Somebody wants you to do something.
More secure. So that's the initial entry into that is more transactional. You've got something you need to look at. But also we're looking to implement thresholds so that if you haven't entered data for 2 weeks now, send a notification, then you get an email to say, hey, go do your entry, or you've got these queries that are more than X number of days old. You may want to just go look at these so that you're not having to log in every day to see what you need to do. We know that you've got a load of activity outside of entering data and managing data into EDC. So we're trying to make it, again, as easy as possible for you guys to do your daily job.
I love it. Let's hit this one last question before we sign off here. Any restrictions in terms of, data format? So like, can I pull up a JPEG and pull, data off that? It looks like, especially with the SNP, it seems like.
Yeah. So it depends, right? The technical elements here are some PDFs really are an image and some are more capturing the data. And you can see when you bring up a PDF, sometimes when you lasso things and copy and paste it, it's actually bringing the text in. PDFs in that format, good. If it purely is an image and there's no sort of context of text, then unfortunately it's not going to work.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Very good. Well, anything else before we sign off?
I think that's it. We threw a lot out there today.
It was. No, and I appreciate you coming on again. I think it's really cool to be able to visualize and see these things. I think hearing about it is just, I don't know, so much less compelling than actually seeing it happen, especially the click, which we've talked about this stuff and I still didn't really realize the, potential there that without seeing it happen. So, I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing that stuff. And otherwise, where can people find you online so they can bother you about this stuff?
I think I gave it out in the podcast as well. It hasn't inundated me, but feel free. My email address is wayne.walker@3ds.com. My old email of wwalker@mdsol.com still works. But you can connect with me there. You can actually go online to our platform and give feedback there. We implemented what's known as Pendo. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that, but it really is a vehicle for allowing us to interact with our users outside of the clinical study and get feedback. So you can give feedback through our platform, and happy to come on here, as I say, anytime and give you an update or answer questions from the sites around what we're doing here at Metadata.
Beautiful. Again, Wayne, can't thank you enough. Hope to have you back every so often as you guys continue to add new cool stuff that hopefully keeps making all of our lives easier. If you guys are watching, thanks so much for your comments. Make sure to check out notetofilepodcast.com, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again, Wayne.
Thanks.